Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lake Cities podcast with Chris and Lucas. I'm going to say my name properly this week. As the last week, my wife's been like, "So, Chris Pinkert." I'm Lucas Pinkert, the pastor. I can't talk.
That's all right, brother. That's all right.
I work here.
I believe you. I believe you, brother.
I'm the pastor of First Baptist Lake Dallas,
Yes,
and with me,
you
as
are.
always, is my partner in crime, Chris Respis. What's going on, brother?
What's up, bro? Good
How
to
things
see
going
you.
at Antioch, man? How you guys been?
So far, so good, man. We've been okay. You know, my whole test is they haven't gotten rid of me yet. Man.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
So I'm golden.
So last week I was on vacation, and I've been trying to keep up with what's been going on in the city. We've been talking about some of the city elections that have been going on. We talked with Christy Blue about that. Megan Ray, who we had on the show a few weeks ago, got reelected.
Yeah.
Adam Peabody is now taking a spot on the Lake Dallas City Council. We got some new members of the Lake Dallas Independent School District School Board,
Right.
which is going to be an important place because Dr. Stinson, who we had on a couple of months ago, she has taken a position as the superintendent of Birdville ISD.
Okay.
So so maybe it's one of those things like you come on our show, you either get reelected or you find another gig.
Yeah, that's
you know?
it. Listen.
So yeah, she's moving on to Birdville ISD. So the superintendent of schools is gone. The Lake Dallas city manager resigned.
Yep.
The police chief retired.
Yes.
And this past Thursday, I found out as I was in the RV heading back to Lake Dallas that the mayor of Lake Dallas has stepped down. So all the top-level leadership in the community has shifted. Now, I think Barnhart's term was supposed to go through 2022.
Next year.
But he stepped down a year early. I know the interim city manager is now trying to figure out what all they're going to have to do in order to fill that role.
Yeah.
Does the mayor pro tem step in and just do it for the rest of the year, which I believe is Andy Nolan? Does the city hold an election to elect a mayor for a year because of the way that the election cycles work?
Right.
Hard
Who
to say.
knows? Yeah,
Don't know.
man. A lot of question marks.
It's been weird. So the city of Lake Dallas has had a total and complete top level leadership change. We've got, and plus the new superintendent. And then this week, the announcement was made that they are no longer going to require masks for the Lake Dallas ISD for students.
Come on.
So
It's a lot going on, right?
it is a lot going on, and it's nice to kind of have that feeling that at least for the students, that things are getting back to normal.
Sure.
Especially after I mentioned that I was on a road trip. We got to go through the Grand Canyon. We got to see the Painted Deserts and the Petrified Forest. We saw Zion National Park, went to Death Valley, saw some of the places where Star Wars was shot.
Right.
Those were all incredible. We went to Los Angeles. My wife had never been to Los Angeles.
Okay.
We're driving from Death Valley National Park to L.A. to get to a wedding that was in San Clemente. My cousin lives out in San Diego. They got married in San Clemente, her and her now husband, Jack. So shout out to
Shout out. Congrats.
Christy and Jack. Congratulations. And to the band that played at their wedding, which was incredible. Yeah. We found out after just jamming for an hour, I finally went over and talked to the bass player when they started to shut things down. I was like, dude, you guys are pretty good. And he's like, yeah. And he let slip that he was Jennifer Lopez's band director. It's like, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's starting to add up now.
Yeah, no wonder you guys knew how.
Great.
Yeah. Your rendition of Smoke on the Water was on point. I wonder why.
I wonder why.
So, yeah, but no, when they started playing Earth, Wind, and Fire, I was like, okay, these guys are a little special. But
That's it.
it was so weird in Los Angeles because I think we've heard a lot, especially in Texas, about how the way things are happening out in California. So
absolutely,
it was very apparent who the tourists were and who were not the tourists.
Okay.
Because the locals in Los Angeles were still, even on the streets, were still wearing masks. And we went and, we went, like I said, my wife had never been there, so we went to the Chinese theater and saw, the handprints and footprints. Right. All of that was blocked off.
Wow.
You couldn't go check any of that out. The normal, superheroes that would be outside that you could take your pictures with and stuff like that. There were a few of them with masks, but for the most part, they were told, they can't be there unless their character wears a mask. So Spider-Man was there.
Right.
There was a Stormtrooper. There was Chewbacca. all people that had to be like fully masked up in order to have their pictures taken with them. Otherwise, they weren't allowed to be there. So the guy who's been the iconic Superman that's been there for like 30 years that looks like a skinny Christopher Reeves, he wasn't allowed to be there. And so some of these other guys who have been working that same block for, forever, like that's their livelihoods. Yeah. They weren't there. We went to the Hard Rock Cafe. The Hard Rock Cafe took your picture and your temperature.
Really?
Yeah. So they took your picture so that if you were running a temperature or if... so they made you like had to fill out this whole thing, right?
Is the
like
food
if you were
good?
going to eat there, right? You had to fill out this whole thing. And so we watched this guy go through this process. And I was like, I'm going to see whether or not they have a table. So we watched him do it. He's got to fill out his name, his email address. They took a picture of him. They took his temperature in case somebody got it.
Right.
So they would have all the info in order to contact him.
Trace.
Right.
Yeah.
So we come in and ask if they had a table, and the lady just moves the rope and is like, yeah, we got one for 4. It'll be in about 10 minutes. You guys can hang out at the gift shop, and locks the thing back behind us. And we were like, wait a minute, hold on. This guy, you just basically took all of his information, blood, like they literally took his picture, his temperature, they asked him for everything but his blood type and his social security number so that he could go sit at the bar. But we want a table, and they're like, no, it's fine. Like, well, we have the tables spaced out. The bar's a little different, so we have to take extra precautions.
Oh, okay.
Dude, it was bizarre.
Yeah, that's weird, bro.
Absolutely one of the strangest things that I've ever seen. And nothing like what we've done here.
Sure.
So there were very different like tacks on how you could do things in the different parts of California, especially in LA.
Okay.
So when we went to, because we had to, you're in the Los Angeles area, you got to go to Beverly Hills. If you're in Beverly Hills, you want to take that stroll down Rodeo
Drive,
right?
Come on.
That's it. We all want to be Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman. I have money. So we walked down and we were there late, so a lot of the designer shops were closing up. Checking out stuff in the windows, and there was some cool artwork out on the street level. That all like had signs like "Don't touch" or "Here's some of the sanitize your hands with" and whatnot. Well, we get to the Gucci store, which you got to make a stop by, and the lady at the Gucci store was so excited that as of I guess yesterday, there was a new mandate to where they no longer had California residents. Now they haven't made this apply to tourists, which I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
But California residents no longer are mandated to wear masks outside.
Wow.
So it's really...
I left my license at home.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's so strange.
Wow.
So that was... she was really excited about it. They do have to wear masks inside unless it's their own home or a small gathering is what they said. So I just think it's interesting to see the way that things are being handled differently because now, here the students are going back to normal and there in LA County, a lot of the schools still haven't opened up.
Wow.
Because the teachers' unions and stuff are still trying to determine whether or not it's safe for teachers to return.
Yeah.
So just absolutely wild getting to see all of that stuff. But I'm happy to hear that things are back to normal. Numbers are down here back in Denton County. What has y'all's experience been like now that you're kind of returning to in person a bit?
Yeah.
How's that been for you guys, and what are you seeing as summer's approaching? What's your feeling about how things are going to go?
Yeah. We're still pretty early in it.
Right.
We just recently came back a few weeks ago, and quite frankly, we're just trying to feel it out, and I think that's been important, for me anyway, for us to try to figure out what works for Antioch, for our congregation. Everybody's, temperament and tolerance for certain things, may change from congregation to congregation.
Right.
And so we're just kind of filling that out. We've had a pretty decent, attendance.
That's good.
Coming back, and it's interesting to see how people respond. We try to help people with the, do I hug you? Do I touch you? With the little red dot, green dot thing.
Okay.
And, I think most folks who came out were just, excited, to have some semblance, of their normal pattern, at least with the church. Probably the most notable thing is folks are adapting, are finding, for our church, we kind of linger around and hang around.
Right.
And so what would normally happen inside, folks were more than willing to do outside,
Yeah.
you know, and where there's more room and space.
But that does get them out quicker.
It does.
You know, because whenever everybody hangs out in the air conditioning, they're willing to talk till like 12:30, 1 o'clock. You know, you start talking when it gets 90 degrees
Hey,
outside.
brother.
Yeah, those suit
call
don't
me,
keep.
call me, man, call me.
That's it.
Yeah, let's FaceTime.
Yeah.
So far it's been okay. You know, we're still trying to figure some things out. What's going to work? You know, vis-a-vis what we're accustomed to doing. One of the challenges, you know, that I'm still working through is what do we do about our, you know, traditional invitation time, and what does that look like? It was fine. You know, we had a plan for when it was, you know, totally virtual, but
Right.
now that we're kind of in this hybrid platform, you know, what's that look like in person, right?
Yeah.
Are people going to feel comfortable, you know, because we would still have people come down and we would pray with them. And
Yeah, now the Baptist church is about to set up confession booths so that
Oh,
everybody got the wall.
that's it. Everybody sit down with this plexiglass, you know, divider, you know, and trying to figure all that mess out. Yeah, so we still, you know, we you know, had some hiccups there, you know, but it's coming along. I mean, you know, I think, you know, we have to just really be nimble
Yeah.
and conscientious, and just try to, you know, make the best common sense decisions that we can. One of the things that I've been really struggling with, and I don't, you know, who knows if this stays on or not,
Right.
you know, is really shifting the burden away from churches,
Yeah.
to be the, you know, the protector of everybody's health.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't mean be negligent, but I do mean, you know, that people need to vote for themselves, right? And
Yeah.
make the decisions that they need to make, in order to feel safe, you know, in order
Right.
to feel like, but you know, it's not the church's burden to do
Yeah,
that.
I think that's one of those things, and not to. I don't want to sound like so many of the other preachers that have been online that's been like, look, you're going to the restaurant, how come you're not coming to
Yeah,
church, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
there is a certain amount, you know, to that is that there is on religious institutions in particular, just because of the nature of what we do, that does not apply to, you know, and I don't want to call any of the restaurants down there that are not, but you know, a restaurant, you know, you're not worried about the barbecue house, but at church, you know, that's
Sure.
a different thing.
Sure.
And it is. I think people are starting to come around on all of that in general. And you know, we've also had the vaccines more available, so a lot
Right.
of people are more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I think President Biden, within the last few days, has made a statement that if you've had your second vaccine, that you no longer have to wear the mask. The CDC has also made that recommendation as well. That it was at first, I think it was you had to have both your second round of the vaccine and then a 2-week quarantine period, and then you're okay. And now they're saying if you've had the second round of the vaccine, that you should be fine, which is giving a lot, you know, a lot more comfort to most people. And so I see that it's starting to ease up. What I'm wondering about, just in particular, and this was one of the things that I thought was really interesting in the little tour that we took of the Southwest, is every place that we went, the RV parks were crowded. So we took an RV, we rented an RV. It was an absolutely awesome experience.
Yeah.
The lady who we got the RV from with RV Share, we were in a 2020 Winnebago. Ooh. That's right, baby. We were riding in the same vehicle that Lone Star and Barf from Spaceballs had just 20 years later in the Mini Winnie.
Yeah.
But it was a blast. The Winnebago was great. A little bit different driving experience.
I bet.
It does not drive like my wife's Mazda in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So there was a lot to adjust to. The RV parks were still full, but the national parks themselves were not.
Wow.
And when we were talking to some of the the park rangers and things like that, they said that there's still a down attendance across the nation to national parks and those kinds of things. And they were still, like at Zion, I think there's like 20-something hikes that you can do.
Okay.
And probably a quarter of them were shut down because there were places like the Weeping Rock where people are continually putting their hands on the same rock or the same couple of trees or things like that, and they can't sanitize it without damaging the forest in
natural,
some way, right?
exactly.
You know, you can't sanitize a tree without putting alcohol on it or
Right.
doing something like that, and then now that causes an issue
Sure.
with that particular plant, which might be, and this was a weird thing to me. There are some of these plants that look like little twigs,
Yeah.
and the park rangers were like, "No, that thing's 25 years old." You're like,
What?
how? Like, well, it's had to survive at altitude for the last 25 years. Like, that's it. That's all the growth that it has, and it looks. I mean, some of these trees that they're saying are like 25 years old look like little branches that you could just go and snap.
Right.
And they're like, no, like the root system is rooted in the mountain and in the rock. Like that thing is not going anywhere. It's probably the most sturdy thing that you can hold on to. But, you know, if you were to grab both ends, you could probably break it in half. So there are a lot of those things that I don't want to put sanitizing solution of any kind on, even the stuff that is quote unquote environmentally friendly,
Right.
because it changes the biochemistry so much. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that we thought was odd, especially at like the big monuments that were made out of rock. So like Weeping Rock and some of the things like that, where you're in these little concave areas and everything is made out of like a limestone or granite or something like that. There's no way for them to sanitize it.
Right.
And so versus leaving it open so that people can see it, if it was a walking path, fine. A walking path with handrails, they were putting out a couple of sanitizer stations like a mile and a half down this trail, there would be a sanitizer station.
Right.
Like that's obviously not naturally there.
Yeah.
Not only that, but like who was the dude that had to carry that
Come
thing,
on,
right?
brother.
Because this is not, you're talking a metal stanchion with the thing.
Yeah.
And like who does the refills?
It was the new guy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, Gary, looks like you're filling up the sanitizer stations at Angels Landing today. The last one is at mile marker 4.
That's it.
You know, take your oxygen tank.
Yeah.
So some of those things were really odd, but there were so many of the hikes that they still had closed because that, even some of the shorter ones, because there were places that people continually touched in order to brace themselves that they knew about. And so they just didn't have those open.
Yeah.
Some of the bus stops, because they had a shuttle that took you to the trailheads, some of the trailheads you had to walk to from another place. So it was like a 1 mile walk to the trailhead instead of being just at the stop, because the way that the bus stop worked, you couldn't maintain 6 foot of distance from the people that were getting on and the people that were getting off. There wasn't enough place to form a line. So there were a lot of really interesting things like that. But they were saying across the board at the national parks, the attendance is down overall. Now, when COVID first started, they were a little behind on what to do. And so there were a lot of people that were visiting the national parks, and then they shut them down. And now that they've reopened, they said, you know, the travelers, the people that are, you know, the RV folks, and we met a few people that were like RV folks.
Right.
Like
That's what they do.
they live. We passed this one guy, and the way that him and his wife make their living now is that they're an RV family. They've got a YouTube channel, they've got an Instagram stuff, and like that's it. And their whole RV, and I'm not, dude, this thing was I don't know how much you know about the RVs and the big bus. It's a Prevost. So this is like $250,000 RV, right?
Wow.
Like a charter bus that this family lives in.
Yeah.
And the stuff that came out of the sides of it was coming out like 3 or 4 feet, had its own leveling jacks that came off of that stuff. It was really impressive.
Wow. That's amazing.
So, but that's how they made their living. And the whole thing is wrapped with pictures of his family's face and where you can find them at like rvfamily.com and where you can look at them on Twitter and Facebook. But that's how they made their whole living.
Yeah.
Was making videos about, you know, where the family's going on the RV.
Yeah.
And this, that, and the other. So there were some people like, this is all that they do.
Right.
And the park rangers are saying that, like, for those folks, you know, the people that are living in RVs or just like traveling from spot to spot, they pretty much have stayed on par and all that. But anybody that just would, you know, drive 3 or 4 hours to come and to visit for a couple of days and stay in one of the hotels in the city, he said there's nothing. There's nothing there. And even like now is at right at the beginning of the season where that stuff would happen, they said attendance is down nearly 50% at all of those parks. So, you know, if that's something that you want to do with your family, like now's a great time to go do it.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's bizarre to see how everybody has reacted to that across the board.
Yeah, just how you know, diverse the response is. You know, I wouldn't have thought for a moment, you know, about, you know, touching the rocks or the parks not being as well attended, because, you know, everything, you know, people are saying is you want to get into an open space.
Yeah.
And you know, just would it just wouldn't have come, to mind. I
There's
wouldn't have thought about
very
it.
few spaces as big and open as the Grand Canyon.
Come on, man. Exactly.
Right? Like that's
pretty big.
That's it. There's a lot
Wide
of space.
hole out there for
Yeah.
you. Yeah, a lot of space.
And still it's down. They are saying, and I thought this was maybe the best fun fact that I came up with. The biggest increase in park vandalism that they've had this year, or that they've had, has come in the last year. And it is from people that they're in a spot on a hike. So many of the park bathrooms are shut down that they are finding that there are folks that are just, they're having to figure something out. They're off the beaten path. They're going off the trail so that they can find a little spot to make water, whatever it is that they need to do. And the one of the guys we were talking to is like, he goes, we've got cameras set up on all these trails, and people just don't. He's like, that's how we know when things happen or when like somebody gets hurt,
right?
So that we can go in and send a park ranger in. And he's like, there are times where we're just like, nope, don't watch camera 4. Like, it's just going to be a while before we're able to come back to that camera. So I thought that was really funny. But he said that's been one of the big side effects is that the cleanups of the park because of human waste
interaction,
has increased quite a bit because the bathrooms and stuff are down at a lot of the stops. So just some weird things that have been side effects of all that those guys are having to deal with now.
Yeah.
But the good thing, conversely, is that a lot of the wildlife that normally was not on the trails, that was only there seasonally, that would kind of go away in the summer, has stayed. Like when we went through the Grand Canyon, we got there at sunrise on probably Wednesday or Thursday morning. And anyway, so we got there for sunrise, and we are walking past this herd of elk. There's baby elk. There's a couple of grown, like male elk that are in in the velvet. So their horns are growing, but they've still got all that red velvet that's on them.
Yeah,
it's really, really cool. And so they're just eating plants, and we're walking by them, and they're not paying any attention to us at all.
And I'm not messing with them either.
Oh, yeah. I've seen too many of those videos of like deer goes after dog where my wife's like, do you think we could touch them? I was like, no. I would rather pet a mountain lion than one of these stupid things. But it was really cool getting to see that. And they said, a lot of the wildlife is returning and coming back. And so we saw several elk and deer that were just right on the trails where normally they would avoid. So there's, good and bad to all of it, but it's absolutely bizarre. Man.
But I'll tell you this, man. I think we need to keep you in town because whenever you go out of town, stuff just starts getting crazy.
Stuff just starts getting crazy. Yeah. Well, so we did talk about how Mayor Barnhart has left. Next week, he will be on the show. He's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff that he's got going on, which I'm excited about. And in the coming weeks, we'll be talking to several of the newly elected council members, some of the people that are on the school board that can give us a little bit of a direction about where they're looking and what some of the candidates for the new recently vacated position of superintendent will go. We do want to congratulate Dr. Stenson on her new position.
Yeah.
You will be dearly missed, but we're excited for you as
Absolutely.
the Lord has led you onto this new area. And bro, it's good to be back. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you, man. You're looking good too, bro. I'm jealous.
I'm telling you, my wife drug me around on these. We went on like 10 miles of hikes in one day. Yeah, and she's part mountain goat, and I am all asthmatic. So,
nah, bro, you're looking good. It's good to see you.
I'm going to have to get my albuterol prescription refilled. She's like, we can just get into shape whenever we get home. I was like, no,
I'm good.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, let's hit this couch.
I'm gonna get more albuterol when we get home. So the next time you try to kill me on the side of a mountain, I'll be ready.
I'll be ready.
Well, hey, everybody, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Lake Cities Podcast with former Mayor, Michael Barnhart from Lake Dallas, and catch up a little bit about what's going on with him. So we'll see you guys next week.
All right, guys, holla.
Chris and Lucas want to thank you for listening to the Lake Cities Podcast, a service provided by FBC Lake Dallas and Antioch Christian Fellowship. If you have a topic you would like for Chris and Lucas to discuss, email them at thelakecitiespodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you give us a review and click on the subscribe button to get the latest episodes each week.